Okay, hello everybody. This is Sunil Nafre here, and I am a transformational life coach. And I will be today, in today's podcast, I will be going through some of the underpinnings and the foundations of neuro-linguistic programming, which presents a range of psychological techniques that can really be used to help influence and change behavior. So before I do that, I'm going to welcome my guest, Mr. Satheesh Kumar, who is a specialist yoga and meditation practitioner, currently based in Jakarta, Indonesia. So I'd like to welcome you to the podcast again. Thank you. Namaste. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you. And basically, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about neuro-linguistic programming, and also I'm going to be talking about rapport building, because this is a really, really important topic. And if you think about it, the basis of our interactions with other people, whoever they may be, whether in our personal relationships or at work or through business, it's heavily reliant on rapport. But we're going to be doing quite a deep dive today in looking at rapport, unpicking it, unpacking it, and for the benefit of obviously my colleague Satheesh, who is going to be listening to this demonstration and presentation, and obviously he'll be sharing his thoughts. But obviously we would like anybody viewing this video to be able to also provide their commentary. So please do offer your feedback throughout. And so let us begin then in terms of what is neuro-linguistic programming. Okay, so neuro-linguistic programming essentially, well, we sometimes use it as an acronym, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And it's a method of influencing our brain's behavior, which is the neuro part, through the use of language. So there's a connection between the neuro and language, essentially. And the reason why we have this connection is to help recode the brain, or to help to coach and mentor, or maybe even change the mind. And that's through programming. So recoding, programming. So you have neuro, the brain, language, which is what we produce in terms of utterances, which may come from our emotional side of things, or it may come from our thoughts, and also recoding the brain. Now, NLP is basically a way of modeling successful behaviors, patterns of behaviors rather. And many people like to refer to NLP as a model of excellence, that if you want to become outstanding as a human being yourself, or brilliant or magnificent in any of the roles that you currently have, whether they be personal ones, as a partner, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, or whether it's, for example, working in a certain role in your job and career, whether you're a leader, a manager, whether you are a practitioner or a key worker, or whether you are running your own business. So you are your own chief executive. Basically, it's possible through neuro-linguistic programming, if you learn some of the techniques and you practice them, and practice is the key. If you practice them, then they become like second nature. That's when you can then work towards excellence, because you are working on yourself and you're using your mind, your language, and the art of reprogramming to be able to bring about change. Now, obviously, when we're talking about matters to do with recoding and programming the mind, this is not an easy thing to do. Sometimes if you can visualize what learning actually is, it's maybe a Venn diagram of 3 circles. So you've got skills, knowledge, and attitudes and behaviors. And neuro-linguistic programming is really focusing on those attitudes and those beliefs that have actually influenced the way you behave. So the attitudes and beliefs are in the unconscious part of our mind, but we need to try to bring them forward into our conscious mind for things to work. And they normally work through the subconscious part of our mind, which is the place of wisdom, intuition, the place of imagination, creativity, etc. So if we don't work on our attitudes and beliefs and behaviors, and our beliefs and our attitudes and values, then our behaviors will just remain the same, whether they are good, bad, or otherwise. However, if by using some of the techniques that I'm going to be demonstrating today in this podcast, you're able to practice them through the use of language, and may well be non-verbal language as well as verbal language, then slowly but surely, this can be quite instrumental in reprogramming what's already set in your hard drive, which is your unconscious mind. It's your unconscious mind that is the hard drive that has registered every single memory of your life up until this point. Maybe memories that you probably have forgotten about, but they're still there and they can always come out at any given time. Okay, but this is a very conscious process because you're conscious of the fact that if you're using neuro-linguistic programming to change your behavior through language, then this is something that you are knowingly doing. So you're very conscious about it. But a conscious activity is then leading to subconscious and unconscious evolvement and change. Now, this may take time. I'm not saying that if you try one or two of the techniques I'm going to explain in this podcast, it's going to work immediately. It may not be the case. But as I said before, neuro-linguistic program techniques, because it's a psychological technique, this could take time. But through practice, and even more practice, so exponential practice, this is where slowly but surely things can begin to change, okay? It's also about the commitment to change as well. This is really, really important. So some people may not like to call it a form of therapy. Now, because I am an NLP practitioner, I'm a certified NLP practitioner, it depends on the client that I'm working with. Sometimes it is used for therapeutic reasons. It is used for therapeutic purposes. And that's something that actually I feel that it can really, really help someone to move forward in their lives, okay? So with the neuro-linguistic programming, you may well find that somebody wants to overcome their fears about something, okay? So they've got some fears, they've got some phobias and frustrations. Some of them just purely want to transform lifelong habits that they've got, maybe the way they think or the way they overthink. Now, maybe people may want to change their emotional state. They may just want to just stop being unhappy and angry, and they just want to get out of that state, and they just want to become more neutral or learn how to become happy again. So NLP can help with that as well. So that might be bordering more on the therapeutic side, but in general, some people just want to learn how to communicate easily and effectively. Okay, they just want to be at ease with themselves when they are communicating with other people. Okay, and that can really, really help a lot. Also, you know, some people may just want to heal from emotional pain from the past. So this is where it becomes a bit more therapeutic. But NLP can also facilitate that, and in many cases it can work. It can work possibly. And again, it depends on the individual, but it has been known that some people who originally were having other treatment protocols, say for their depression or their excessive anxiety or severe chronic stress, and then when they had someone introduce some of these simple, invasive techniques to them, then they made the shift to more of a holistic approach, or they embraced the holistic approach to the protocols that have been determined for them, namely through their doctor or their physician. Okay, so, and also it's about resetting internal programming. Sometimes we think, why do I think the way I do? Why do I learn the way that I always learn? Why can't I do it differently? And that's because of the way you've been programmed throughout your life, through your experiences. NLP is about making that change. And some of the underpinnings about NLP are really about that all behavior is a product of our mind. All behavior is a product of our mind, even though we may not believe it, but it's true. Okay. Therefore, small changes on the inside can make huge differences to the outside. And what we're doing with NLP, it is all internal work. Now, the techniques that I will be demonstrating to you in this podcast and future podcasts about NLP, they can either be done with a practitioner like myself, or you could do them with a trusted person, as long as you understand what the technique is and you need a buddy to be able to practice certain things. Or in some cases, you might be able to use these techniques all by yourself. Okay? And essentially, with Neuro-Linguistic Programming, it's about the premise that if you can change your mind, then you can change your life. Okay? This is a really, really powerful notion that some people may think, what, you mean I can completely change my life from the way my mind works and changing that? Yes, it's possible. Okay? Obviously, you may not completely take on board what I'm saying about NLP, but if you do your own research, if you go on Google, go on YouTube, you'll hear and see many successful stories of how people have used NLP. Now, I'll be very surprised if you haven't heard of the name Tony Robbins from America. He is a world famous, world-class coach and mentor. Whenever he performs live, it's sold out to sold out arenas. Tens of thousands of people go and see him. And he doesn't normally use NLP in terms of how he explains some of his insights, but he is using a lot of NLP techniques. He originally trained as an NLP practitioner. And that's why he is brilliant at what he does. But more importantly, he's able to influence people for them to change their lives. So Tony Robbins, please search that name if you haven't done already. Okay, so I'm just going to show a slide so I can just quickly just summarize. So let me just, okay, so I'm just going to screen share. Okay then, right, here we go. So we have a Venn diagram here, which clearly shows how NLP is built up. So you have and neuro, your thinking processes, the way you use your senses to understand what's happening around you. And with the senses, there are basically, for example, how you see things, how you hear things, what you smell, what you taste, etc. So there are different senses. Within NLP, we like to talk about preferred representational systems like the VACOG, which is V for visual, A for auditory, G for gustatory, in terms of tasting, A for auditory, and also K for kinesthetic, which is doing things, handling things physically. So that is the N bit. So the L bit is linguistic, your words, how you use language and how it influences you and those around you. Okay. Now here in England, we use terms like, well, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Okay. If you take that in the literal sense, they may well be true, but also words can also have a massive impact. Okay. The way that somebody speaks to you, the way that they use their tone, the way that they use their eye contact with you, it can all have a massive impact. So in terms of, choose your words carefully, that's another phrase that's very, very famous. And this is something that really can also help people to be mindful of what they're saying and how they're saying it, because that is so instrumental in making NLP work for whatever you need it to work for. And then the programming is your behavior and how you organize your ideas, reactions, and how this affects you and others. Okay, so this is where you're using your rational mind or irrational mind to be able to understand what's happening, and then you make a conscious decision to be able to do something about the actual situation you're in or a problem that you're currently experiencing at this moment in time. Okay, so NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Okay, right, okay, so I'm just going to come out of that. So just coming out of there. Sorry, just trying to manage everything at the same time. There we go. Fabulous. Okay, right. So we're now going to move on to looking at rapport. Okay, and this is a really critical part of neuro-linguistic programming. Okay, so we may well ask ourselves 3 questions. Okay, the first of all is, what is rapport? And the second one is, do you think you have a good rapport with people? And number 3, why do you think you have a good rapport with some people and maybe not a good rapport with others? Okay, and rapport is the basis of any kind of effective relationship. Is an important part of any relationship is that you have that rapport. Okay, and from an NLP point of view, because we're talking about neuro-linguistic programming, from an NLP point of view, we define rapport as a state of responsiveness. Okay, how responsive we are with ourselves, the rapport we have with ourselves, and also the rapport we have with other people as well. And responsive means that the person or people you are interacting with, consciously or unconsciously, they respond to you, and you therefore have the lead in the communication. This is interesting, having the lead in the communication. So when you think about it, when you are in a good rapport with someone, normally there's one person, so you're having a conversation with 2 people, one person will be modeling certain types of behavior, and then the other person will be observing that. And if they match some of their bodily gesture, their bodily gestures or facial expressions, or maybe copying their tone or their speed of voice, then that's about having a rapport with someone. And in neuro-linguistic programming, to achieve or accelerate rapport, we begin by taking on elements of another person's physiology and also their voice qualities. And this is called mirroring. Okay, now I'll talk about mirroring and matching because they're more or less the same thing, but they're slightly different as well. Okay, now after a period of mirroring, you then move on to a slightly different position than the other person, who in turn will then follow to keep the symmetry that was previously there. This is really important, symmetry. So in a mirror, so if I was to put this in the mirror, then this is what I would get. Okay, so you'll get some kind of a symmetry going on, okay, between the shape of my hand. And this is about having some kind of symmetry, some kind of similarity with the other person in terms of the way they present themselves physically and also how they are talking to you, okay? And also when the other person is unconsciously following your lead, that person will accept your suggestions and ideas less critically because you have established a certain state with your language and your body movement that will then put that person at ease, and then they will connect with you. Then you have that rapport. Okay, and that's really important. Let me just go into a little bit more detail if you were going to mirror someone's physiology in terms of their body action and behavior. So if you were in the same room as someone, or you were having a Zoom video chat like I'm having here, or a presentation rather, with my very good friend Satheesh here. So if you were going to be mirroring the physiology, maybe then if I was leaning back like this, then the other person would also lean back, okay, and showing state of relaxation. If they're leaning forward like this, then they're showing that they are listening and they are really interested in what you have to say. This is very important particularly when you're using NLP in a situation where you want to show that you are attentive to the other person and you're listening to them. Or from business context, again, normally a salesperson will lean a little bit forward to show that they're listening and they're focusing on the eye movements of the other person, keeping very good eye contact. So this is really about trying to match things. And also, you may well find that if you're talking to someone and you're in the same room as them, maybe if you start to cross your legs, they may well copy you. That is also around mirroring the physiology and trying to establish a rapport. Also, folding of arms, like this. If you're folding arms or you've got your arms on your hips, and if you copy that, then that's also trying to establish a rapport. Also, style of gestures. So sometimes you probably notice that I like to nod my head when I'm talking, or I use my hands a lot. Sometimes another person who does that is also showing that, yes, I'm mirroring what you're doing, because I want to follow what you're saying and I want to match what you're saying, and hence I'm going to be able to have a really good rapport with you. And also breathing as well. Normally you can get a sense when you are with someone that how well they are breathing. Is their breathing in a very, very calm, using a calm state, or are they breathing quite quickly? So sometimes when somebody is very animated, you can tell that because of the amount of energy they're putting in the way they're talking, that their breathing rate will go up. And then if you start matching that similar energy, then your breathing rate will go up. And they'll probably appreciate, this person has the same breathing rate as I do. Then you might get a rapport at the end of it. All right. So that's really about mirroring the physiology. Now, in terms of mirroring the voice qualities, this is really about things like pitch. Okay. In terms of making sure that the information that you're presenting is actually relevant to the other person in terms of how you're pitching it, how you're explaining it. And so if they're pitching something in the way that, for example, they're getting right down to the main point, then they're not going around the subject. Their pitch is quite clear and concise. If you start to give a very clear, concise pitch, then that can also be, when the other person knows, this person's a bit like me. They're using their pitch very, very succinctly. Okay. All right. Okay. So the next thing is about mirroring voice qualities, about speed of voice, someone talking and how quickly they're talking. Okay. So you tend to find that if someone is talking slowly, if you're going to talk very fast, then there's not going to be much room for having a connection or rapport. But if you don't normally speak as fast as the other person, but you adjust your speaking speed to their speaking speed, then that's something that can actually help to gain rapport in that situation. Sometimes if I'm working with a client and they're taking their time getting out what their issue and the problem is, it's going to be counterproductive for me as a practitioner to talk very, very quickly as if I'm presenting something. It's not going to work. I have to lean forward, listen very carefully, and then I will then be mirroring rather their particular speed of voice. There were other things like volume, in terms of how high the voice is. Also intonation, which is the rising and the falling tone of the voice. Normally in the English language, when we're asking a question, what is your name? Where are you from? Then the tone will go up towards the end. And normally in an utterance, my name is Sunil. I am from the United Kingdom. Then when you're going to the end of the utterance, then the tone goes down. So just about being aware of little things like that in terms of volume and also intonation as well. And also if the person likes to pause in between words or in between utterances. And maybe the pause is there for them to think. So if you're showing a few pauses, then that might give the other person time to think about what you've actually said. Okay. And that's really important. And also style of words as well. I mean, if I'm working with a client and they're using quite simple vocabulary, simple sentence structures to communicate, then I'm not going to come across with lots of complex sentences or lots of high level words which are very low frequency for the other person. So I'll be also mirroring the range of vocabulary, okay? Because that also will get a rapport. The last thing I want when I'm working with someone is that I start to use vocabulary that is just too high or is just too simple for the person I'm working with. And that's really, really, and that's really important. So it's really important to remember with mirroring, it happens naturally in everyday communication. So if you are subtle and natural, then it will remain out of the other person's consciousness. If the other person crosses their right leg across their thigh, then there is no need for you to do quite the same. You can cross your legs lower down if it feels more natural. So, you know, so you don't have to like do exactly what they're doing, because they might think, oh, this person's copying of me exactly. But you're just very subtly starting a rapport by copying certain aspects of what they're doing and what they're saying, okay, to get that rapport. And I would not recommend that if you're looking at mirroring the voice tonality, please do not copy of a person's accent, okay, because accent is part of that person's identity and possibly their cultural background. Or maybe it's more reminiscent of the dialect that they're using, okay? So these are things which, you know, it would be highly offensive if I started to copy of somebody's accent if they're from different countries. I'm going to use my own accent, which is part of my identity, being British, and also somebody else who's from a different country, they will use their own accent, and that's absolutely fine. But I will be aware of speed, okay? Because I don't want them to feel that I'm talking too fast. And some people may say in some languages, maybe the speed is more faster. Like, for example, Italian and Spanish languages, some may regard them as being very, very fast paced. So it all depends. So all these things, and that speed can transfer itself into English. So it's really important to be aware of these things so then you can get that rapport. It doesn't matter which country that person's from, what's their language background. You can still have fantastic, fabulous rapport with people. Okay, and again, and so it's really important to be able to you know, use that rapport. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give you some techniques on how you can really start to create the rapport through the mirroring process, okay? And with some of these techniques, it may take about 30 seconds, it may take about 60 seconds, etc. And so I'm just going to like talk through it. So I'm going to just give you 5 ways that you can do this, okay? So I'm going to ask yourself, Satheesh, to kind of help me with the demonstration, okay? So Satheesh, number 1, if you can slowly move your body to the same position as mine. So I'm sitting like this, my shoulders are relaxed, and my neck is quite high up, and I'm establishing good eye contact. So would you be able to do the same as well, please, Satheesh?
Is it okay?
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Satheesh, I'm going to lie back. I'm going to completely relax, and my head is going to be resting on my chair. So I want you to be able to completely follow what I'm doing. Okay? Fantastic. Okay. Now, thank you very much. So we can just go back to a normal position. Now, so from where I'm sitting, I just felt that we had a better rapport because we were in the same physical position. And then, you know, when I was sitting up like this or I was leaning back, so I felt that we were having a really good rapport there. But again, if I'm leaning back and you're sitting forward, I may give the impression that I'm not really paying attention. I'm not listening to you. So that's really, really important as well. And it's really important for the second thing is to make sure that as well as being aware of the bottom half of your body and how that, like with your legs, for example, crossing of legs or keeping the legs together or whatever it might be, that your upper body is also more or less aligned to the other person as well. And also how you position your head. You know, some people may like to slightly tilt their head, maybe up and down a little bit like this. You know, when they are talking, they may do it regularly, or they just may do it intermittently. But sometimes, and some people may also like to slightly twitch their shoulders. They just feel a little bit of an urge to be able to slightly move their body. Now, for some reason, for me, I do, as you can probably tell with this presentation, when I'm talking, I do like to use my hands. I do sometimes twitch my shoulders. Normally, when I find somebody else is mirroring that, I say, right, that person listening to me, because they're more or less matching the actual physical actions as well. So number 3, in terms of tilting your head as well. And also, the 4th thing is about the breathing, okay? Breathing. So if I'm breathing at a normal rate, then if I can feel that other person is also breathing at a normal rate, then normally then that also establishes a really, really good rapport as well. And also, the other thing as well, number 5, is like, for example, if I suddenly shift my bodily position like this, and then if I find the other person is also trying to very delicately shift their body. So, for example, if I'm shifting this way, if they also shifted that way, then I get the impression that they're listening to me, because they've also tried to make an attempt to move their body the same way that I have moved my body as well. So there we go. So there are some really good things here. And I just want to very quickly show a diagram, which what I will do, so you can see how mirroring is similar to matching. So Satheesh, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. So with mirroring, which what I explained to you, it's almost like you're looking in the mirror. So it's like, for example, how Satheesh, you were copying of me during this live podcast, okay? And so that would be mirroring. So as you can see, and on the right, the picture on the right-hand side, this is what mirroring is all about. However, matching is, for example, when you are, say, if you're behind someone, if you're physically behind them and you're copying what they're doing, then that is regarded as matching. But essentially, they're both more or less the same, because you are essentially aligning your body and you're aligning your kind of your voice, which is more aligned to the individual. Okay, to establish that rapport. Okay, so matching is in NLP is your ability to match exactly the physiology of your client to gain rapport. It's a natural ability for your body to be in sync with another person in your life. Okay, and the difference between matching and mirroring, well, it's more or less the same. But like I said, mirroring is like you're looking in the mirror, but then matching is like, you know, you're copying of what other person is doing behind you as well. Now, one may ask, so we're coming towards the end of this presentation. You know, what are the benefits of building a rapport with someone or with yourself? Because rapport is also about feeling totally at ease and comfortable with yourself and having a relationship with yourself. I mean, some philosophers or, you know, very prominent life coaches, I mean, I'm thinking of Oprah Winfrey here. I think the whole world knows who Oprah Winfrey is. She's always maintained that the most important relationship you can have is with yourself. And if you're having a relationship with yourself, getting to know who you are, getting more into, you know, why you say the things that you do, why you behave the way that you do, then you have to get a rapport. You have to try to build trust with yourself and build a relationship. But ordinarily, the benefits of building a rapport are obviously also with helping to build solid and productive and effective relationships with other people within one's life, whether it's with your loved ones, with your partner, with your children, with, say, your local neighbors, your community, people you work with, people that you lead, people that you manage. I cannot stress enough how important it is to be able to build rapport. So I'm just going to go through 3 benefits really of building a rapport. The first one is it really is helpful that when you start to build a rapport that you're trying to discover a common connection. Okay. And I have to say, since being in quarantine myself, self-isolation, and obviously not being able to physically go out and meet people face to face, I have built such a fabulous rapport with lots of people online through collaborations, and one such individual is yourself, Satheesh. Building a very good rapport with yourself over the last few weeks, doing some marvelous work with you, brilliant podcasts. And because we've been able to establish common understandings and we understand each other, our modalities and our values, etc., that we've been able to get that rapport because there is a common connection. And I'd say, Satheesh, the common connection between you and me is the fact that we really want to help use our knowledge and our skills and our intuition to help other people to learn, heal, and transform. So healing and transformation is what, I mean, obviously you will do it differently to you because your modalities are yoga, meditation. Mine are more down the wellness route in terms of looking at modalities like NLP and hypnotherapy and emotional freedom technique to help people. And this is why our common connection is helping us to learn and grow, but also to strengthen our own working relationship as practitioners and our own friendship as well. Also, if you are, so the second one, so the first one is common, you know, having some kind of a common connection. Now that's how, you know, rapport can be really beneficial. Also, building a rapport can also be hugely beneficial if you are trying to show more empathy towards someone. Now, some people may say, well, isn't empathy the same as sympathy? You know, aren't they more or less the same thing? Some may agree, but for me personally, empathy, well, sympathy is when you have a regard for someone and you do care for them. However, when you empathize, if they're crying, you're crying too. So you're actually feeling the emotional state that that other person is in when you have empathy, okay? So, you know, events happen around the world. And sometimes when I watch the news and when I learn of events around the world or in my own country, you know, sometimes if it's a really upsetting thing, then I will get emotional. You know, my eyes will start watering, and I get gripped by the whole emotion of what's happened. And so for me, I have a rapport in that case with the person or the victim, or you know, or the circumstances around that person, or the community, for example. So, and that's how I, you know, by establishing a rapport, I'm also gaining what the rapport is giving to me is a higher sense of empathy, okay? Because I'm making an effort to be able to get into that person's mind, their situation, and their lives. And I find that, you know, with regards to the work that I do with clients, yes, I mean, I also have to hold very strong professional boundaries so I don't get emotionally involved with the clients. And obviously that's very important, but I can still show empathy. I can still express to them, I completely understand where you're coming from, because I had this issue or I went through that. And this is what I did to overcome it. Okay. So number 1 is creating a common connection. Number 2 is about developing empathy. And number 3 is that if you are able to build a rapport with someone, it'll also build on your communication skills. Now, I have to say to yourself, Satheesh, and the whole wide world, is that I'm improving my communication skills every single day. I can definitely say I am actually a better communicator I am now than I was 6 months ago, or 6 months before that, or even a year before. Definitely, you know, 5 years back, definitely a better communicator, because I'm learning the art of trying to build a rapport with people. So number 3, try to become a better communicator. It's so important that we don't forget the basics of good communication. So, you know, to look people in the eye, to have really good eye contact with them shows that you're listening and you're being attentive. And again, you know, pre-COVID, it would have been a good old handshake. But these days, lots of people will also, if I do a namaste to people, people do the namaste back. That's a very, very, very powerful way of establishing rapport with someone, but also you're strengthening the rapport with yourself and your connection with universality and that's higher source power, or God, or however you want to view that. But this is also extremely powerful for getting that rapport going. And also smiling, you know, when you smile at someone, then they're really interested in you. They're actually very, that, you know, they want you to feel at ease with themselves by smiling. It's such a simple thing, but a lot of people forget to smile. And even though they're not, by not smiling, I'm not saying that they're not happy, but it's just that, just showing it, just matching the physical action of smiling with how you're feeling, having more alignment there. And also being an active listener. Now, if you're actively listening, then you are responding back to what that person said, and then you're adding to their thoughts and insights. That's being an active listener. But how many times do you know, you might listen to someone, or for example, you're talking to them and you want them to listen, but then it just goes from here and there, and then when they talk back to you, they don't relate to what you just said. It can be very annoying, and that doesn't build rapport. I get really put off by people who, when I talk to them and they don't respond back. So really developing the art of active listening skills is also about, you know, it also comes from having that rapport as well. And also being a better communicator is also about giving people your full attention. And you know, by being still, having good eye contact, maybe leaning a bit forward, mirroring and matching some of their bodily movements and their voice to get that rapport going. Okay, right then. So then, Satheesh. So we've got about 10 minutes or so left before we come to the end of the podcast. So I've just given you a broad kind of outline of what neuro-linguistic programming is. And then we've gone into some detail looking at one aspect of NLP, which is building rapport, and then talking about concepts such as mirroring and matching, bodily actions, and voice, and aspects of the voice to get that rapport. And then we finished off with 3 benefits of developing a rapport. So do any thoughts, observations, Satheesh, come to mind for you from what I've just presented to you?
It's very nicely explained, all the things. Yeah, it's good. First of all, communication is very, very important. And then empathy, you told that is very important. Empathy is whatever we think others in our position.
Yeah.
We take decision according to the coin as the two sides. Whatever others will think, we think and decide it. That's a very valid one. Because many people, what happen, they never think empathy. Whatever they take, that's all. They never think about others. So think about others is a very good one, and that is empathy. And then you told that mirroring, it's good. And then body language, you have told that is body language is very, very powerful. So whenever you told that, but somewhere it differs. For example, when you go to our superiors, they generally lean back, lean chair and talk to us. They're relaxed, but we lean forward, but they are lean backward.
Yes.
They are relaxed in the chair and discuss with us.
Yeah.
But we lean discuss with. So it changes place. But the person of two same category, that will be different. That will be same posture and psychology, and then the body language should be good. And also the person is yawning, meaning he is not interested.
Yes.
Then a person keep hand in the pocket, he hides something. he hide some facts. These
Ah,
are some body languages.
sorry. What body
Then if
language they use if they're hiding something? Then.
yeah, they keep hands into the pocket, mean they hide something.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. That's interesting.
Then if the person while walking keep the hand behind up behind and
Okay.
fold his hand and walk, mean he is thinking. He think about something and he way to absence. That's the meaning. He
Yes.
is in, so don't disturb him. He is in thinking mode.
Yes.
Also, tilting hand, tilting head. For example, if a person tilting, looking at the right side,
Mm.
mean he, for example, you ask something, will you come to my house tomorrow? If a person look at the right side like this, mean he is thinking positively and he wants to say a positive thing or he say truth. He say, oh, okay, tomorrow I will come, mean it will be. But if you look at the left side, mean say tomorrow I will come to your house, mean he lied. He will not come to your home.
That's interesting. I didn't realize
A
that.
lot of things are
Yeah.
also.
Yeah. Because then,
Yeah.
if
Then
you,
look at the right side, looking.
yeah, yeah. Because if you know,
He looking.
yeah, yeah. So you
He
know,
will say yeah,
yeah,
truth.
yeah, yeah. So if you know from their bodily actions they're lying, then that's going to have a massive impact on the rapport because you lose the trust in that person, don't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you lose the trust.
So if you learn it, it will be good for us. Generally, a person keeping the head on, keeping the hand on his hips,
Yeah,
me, he is in generally the security people and the person having lot of autocratic leadership style, or he is more powerful. They're keeping the hand on the hips.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So this aggressive, it shows aggressiveness.
yeah. It can. You know, when you put
Are
hips like,
generally leaders are doing like this.
yeah,
Leaders,
yeah,
security people, military people, they are doing like this. So that time, if you keep your shoulder down, mean you are not confident. And
yeah,
also it also show the thing. It's shows your own confidence.
yeah,
This
yeah,
some things are there. So when we are talking with others, we have to observe those things and act accordingly. And also, you know, one thing, some people are having wavelength. If 10 people are there in one room, four people are having same wavelength like you. So they will come and cooperate with you. They want to talk to you more. But three or four people, they don't have the good wavelength with you. They always oppose you. They say no, it won't become. I
right.
want
That's
you.
so interesting. Wow, wow. That is,
That's a wavelength.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also that is also called karma. The karma that also.
Previous life.
Yeah, when we are positive with some people, positive thing will happen. When we are having same mentality, same wavelength, we easily make friendship with others.
Mm,
Think, decide
yeah, yeah,
that is having good wavelength, easily communicate with the person and succeed in the his vision. But wavelength is not good. Whatever you do, they never accept you.
yeah. That's right. And it's a really important point that you've raised, Satheesh, because I mean, we're talking about having a rapport with people, but then it may well be that the other person doesn't want to have a rapport with you. There's something about you that they can't connect with, and it could be nothing that you're doing wrong. It's just that they just can't establish any kind of rapport, and they don't. And then it'll come across in maybe not giving their full attention to you. Maybe their tone of voice begins to become more sharper or more aggressive, or they start using their hands like this because they're just not interested in what you have to say. Or worse still, they'd rather mess with their phone, talk to their phone, rather than talk to you. And so then obviously, you know, despite your best efforts in building a rapport, it can be quite challenging. But, you know, like if you have to work with someone, this is where the problem happens. If you have to work with someone and you want to have a good rapport with them, but they're not having a good rapport with you, then that's where it can become a problem. Same time, in your personal relationships, if there isn't a good rapport with the person that you are, you know, having a relationship with, or within the family or in a marriage, then, you know, that can also have problems as well. So it's really important that if rapport can be built on in these particular relationships, and they do need more time for reflection, and people may need to work together. And, you know, which is why clients come to see me, because something has broken down in their relationship at work or personal relationship with their partners or their children. And so some of the work that I do is trying to get the rapport up and running again, trying to get that good, nice ebb and flow and synergy, connectivity between the two people. But sometimes you may come to the conclusion that this is not working for me. Despite my best efforts to build a rapport, I'm feeling very down, depressed, anxious. Then obviously you have to then take the appropriate course of action that you need to take, okay? But if everyone makes an effort to build rapport in a situation where they make a conscious effort to do the things that we've talked about, then it can really be very helpful. Okay, then, Satheesh, do you want to say any final points before we draw the segment to a close?
It's fine. One thing is sure. If something happened to us, it will happen.
Yes.
Something positive, negative happen to you, nobody will stop it. Stop it. And it will happen.
And I think
so we trust in God and path.
Yeah. And Satheesh, can I ask you, I hope it's not a personal question, but in my presentation, I talked about how quickly I felt that I've established a really good rapport with yourself. So what do you think about our rapport between each other?
It's good. We have a positive wavelength. Maybe positive. That's why I met you.
Yes.
Because of the positive wavelength, I'm able to communicate you. Whatever you believe me, I believe you. So the smooth rapport is going on. That is because of the wavelength and the everything.
Yeah.
Everything that will go. We are a different people to set up mind. We are going a different time, like South Pole and North Pole. It never joined together. So when we are going in a same way, everything will be good. That's why it's happening. I hope so.
Brilliant. Okay, then, Satheesh. So that brings the this podcast to an end. Thank you so much indeed, and look forward to meeting you again in a future segment. Thank you.